Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for EDC's CrossCat webinar series on leveraging digital vision technologies for enterprise and industrial applications. My name is Pierluigi Buonicore. I'm the Global Trade Director at EDC for the Advanced Technology sector, and I'll be moderating this webinar today, this session today. I also have with me my colleague, Sean Fan. He's the Global Trade Director at EDC for Advanced Manufacturing and Industrial Technology. Our guest speaker today is Drew Carruthers, Director of Product Strategy at CM Labs, who will provide an overview of their digital training simulators for heavy equipment. Thanks again, and over to you, Drew.
Hi, thank you for that, Pierluigi. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to come listen to me speak. Busy times, strange times, so I really appreciate your attention for this time. As said, I'm the Director of Product Strategy at CM Labs. What we do at CM Labs is we provide solutions for operator training using simulators. It's very difficult to get training on pieces of equipment that should be out in the field making money. What we do is we provide very safe alternatives, and we pride ourselves on being able to replicate the machine behavior on a simulated environment so that people can get into learning situations, gain experience in a very safe environment. Equipment is very complex and very expensive. We offer an alternative to that and in a way to accelerate people through a training program without any risk. Can you advance to the next slide, please? So what I'd like to do is we'll break it down. I have 15 minutes with you. We're going to be breaking it down onto what we can offer the industry, who we are, and how we do it, and kind of weave those things together. So I'd like to basically start with some of the motivation, what we do to solve industry challenges. Next slide, please. So first and foremost, what we do is we offer an alternative we offer an opportunity for cost reduction. We are not expenses, we are investments as far as simulators. So what you see on the right there is a 5-screen simulator. That simulator costs electricity. It does not cost anything with fuel consumption. It does not degrade your machine through wear and tear. It requires very, very little maintenance, just a power button to turn it off at night. There are 0 incidences that we've ever. You have is the ability to leave somebody to experience heavy equipment on a safe platform so the trainee doesn't need to be hovering around that person. The alternative is that you set up a piece of heavy equipment in the yard, you rope it off, you make sure everyone's safe, you fill it up with fuel, you have the maintenance, and you have a very attentive instructor who's making sure that everyone learns their objectives in a very, very safe way. Well, a lot of that stress is removed when you're putting somebody in a classroom environment onto a simulator like you see. Can you switch to the next slide, please? The next thing we do is we offer training optimization. So we've been really lucky to see the transformation inside heavy equipment training, inside the port industry, and inside forestry of people coming to us trying to find different solutions to optimize their training, to get more out of to deliver more than what they traditionally do. So we offer an opportunity to maximize your training resources. We never want to say that this will replace industry. What we say is that this can supplement. If you have 8 students, a couple of them can be out on the real equipment, and the rest of them can be honing their skills and developing muscle memory on a simulator. We can offer to put students into very challenging situations, nighttime operations, windy conditions, gusts of wind, team training, all highly repeatable, highly safe inside a simulated environment. We offer the chance for people to learn at their own pace. Not everyone is created equally. All students will have the people who get it right away and the people who take time to think about it right away. We offer an opportunity to have the self-paced learning. And you'll see that in one of the examples I give later on. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. We improve the instructor to trainer ratio. We can almost double it so that one instructor's attention can be spread out to more students, pushing more people through the training curriculum because there's no worry about safety, because it's an objective assessment tool that at the end of the day, you'll get reports printed on how students went through the curriculum that you designed. Next slide, please. One of my favorite things is these things are neat and they're interesting. They attract eyes at trade shows. I've been doing this for 8 years and 15 years before that in a different industry using simulation. They draw people into our industry. Now, if you're in a section of the world who has a problem with recruitment, this will draw eyes. This will tell people that you are in a forward-looking industry, that we will take care of you, that we have your development and your career progression in mind because we're investing in technology. If you're in a place in the world that doesn't have that problem, who have lineups around the block every time you open up your doors, we offer an ability to vet people very, very quickly. It's an objective tool. How do they react to stressful situations? Are they actually matching up to the resume or the CV that they gave you? A very quick way to assess them. And we allow people to be observed in situations where you can see how they're going to behave. Are they going to blast through this? Are they going to act like a cowboy, or are they going to be letting go of the controls, thinking through the situations? You can very quickly assess this within 1 hour session with operators. You get the best skills into your organization. Next slide, please. Objective operator assessment. So what these simulators do is they put a replication of the machine, not in just the form of it, but in the behavior of it, accurate fuel consumption, accurate modeling of hydraulics. Then we put them into learning situations, and then we give all that power to the instructors to say, what is your value? Is fuel consumption your value? Is safety your value? And there you can tune the simulators to evaluate for those parameters, your values inside the objective assessment. But most importantly, all people going through the simulator training program are measured apples to apples by the same yardstick. And that allows you to make sure that you're getting the best talent into your organization. Everything is within your hands to use this as a training tool. Nothing is predetermined for you. We will just provide to you the most high fidelity simulator that is available on the market today. Next slide, please. So how do we do that? We offer 3 training solutions. So what you'll see here is heavily focused on our construction and forestry industry. On the left, what you see is the Vortex Edge Plus and the Vortex Edge Max. This is the entry-level simulators. On the Edge Max has motion, the Edge Plus values portability. The Edge Plus can be collapsed down into travel cases. We have examples of these who are being traveled around on bush planes to do remote training up north in Canada. We have examples of these that are being sent around in tractor trailers to go reach the students. They clamp onto tables. They can set up a classroom very, very quickly. And it's a good way to enter it. And it's OEM controls. It's the same software on all our simulators. In the middle with the Edge Max, what you have is motion. So you start with the cues. If you're a crane operator, you're learning with your eyes, your ears, and you're learning by the seat of your pants. Slight movements and shifts. What does that mean? How do I react to that? You have a larger screen that can rotate depending on your field of view that you're required. And our flagship product, the Vortex Advantage, is a 3-screen solution. Again, all 3 screens can rotate. So whether you need a wide field of view, whether you're dealing with checking your spots as you're going into a corner, or a vertical field of view when you're maybe dealing with excavators or cranes where you need to see a boom tip and your landing spot at the same time, the screens will rotate with just a pulling of a pin and rotating with one person. The Vortex Advantage also has the advantage of being able to swap out the controls. So real OEM controls. If you're really getting into advanced training like grader operation, the controls are critical that you train on them, so they're your Caterpillar or your John Deere controls. The pedals can be swapped out individually. You can switch from one piece of equipment to another piece of equipment by rotating the screen, swapping out the pedals, changing the joysticks, all within 2 minutes, one person. And then as you're loading up the next software, you can be swapping out the hardware, and the next session can start. Next slide, please. And finally, what will be a sneak preview of what we'll be announcing this week is our new augmented reality app. So what we identified is there's a need inside the market for a real focus on inspection training. The #1 incident in OSHA has identified it in the last fiscal year 2020, The number one instance or violation that they identified were inspection violations by a wide margin. The number one repeat offenders was inspection. So what we did is we developed a mobile application that can project, as you're seeing on the screen in this mock-up, using your phone, using your camera, you will see the environment behind you. But we'll project into that environment a 3D model that will sit there on the ground, life size. And you will go around clicking on inspection points and learning how to do a walk around inspection for a crane, a piece of earth moving equipment. We even have the ability to put in faults. A little oil leak here, a stain on the ground over there, a rusty cylinder over here, a broken or cracked mirror over there. And the student's job is to walk to that place, identify it, and click onto it to say, I found this. This piece of equipment isn't meeting up to my standards. That lives in your pocket. That goes away with you outside the classroom walls. This is a way to instill training in people's minds as a way of life, rather than something that is learned in the school and then you go into industry. They're not separate thoughts. It's a continuous process. So if that is interesting to you, then we'll be releasing that this week. So stay tuned for that. Next slide, please. So I'd like to talk a little bit. I have 4 use cases of some clients. We really like to keep in close contact with our clients. So to go through 4 use cases. Next slide, please. The first one is the city of Toledo. So the city of Toledo had a problem that their equipment was being badly damaged. And their bosses, the elected officials, were saying, get your act together. What you need to do is you need to make sure that equipment, we can't keep replacing this equipment. The operators need to have a standardized way of training. So they came to us asking for a solution. We provided to them a simulator and a curriculum to follow. And from there, now they have standardized training for all their operators going through so that the equipment will actually have a longer shelf life and that you can instill safety values and you can have a feedback loop. Any instances that are discovered in field, you can then train them on the simulator in a safe way moving forward. Next slide, please. Our long-term friends in Corpus Christi, Del Mar College. So Del Mar College do workforce development, and they were a very forward-looking company. We've been partners with them for a very long time. In the background, you can see a tractor trailer. They installed the simulators in the tractor trailer, and then they went out to where the workforce needed to be trained. What they found by delivering simulator-based training and really developing it into the curriculum and integrating it into real-world equipment and simulator-based equipment and classroom training and reinforcing ideas, they're able to reduce the cost of training by half. So they calculated it out. They've been doing this for many years now to $75 an hour, including instructor time. Whereas if they were just doing it in the traditional way with the cranes that are out in the yard, it costs double that. So they really saw this as an investment and something that actually ends up earning them money. Next slide, please. OETIO is by far our longest-serving partner. We've had them for over 20 years. They were our initial partner. They helped us develop the concept of simulators and the idea of embedding and putting a focus on the pedagogical elements because they are a training school. And recently, a couple of years ago, they doubled down. They created simulator labs. So they've always been someone who's been very forward-looking. They experimented with the simulators 20 years ago, and recently purchased an entire lab full of them because they recognize the cost savings and the value of them. They are really pioneers in the idea of self-paced learning. Go to the lab, log onto a simulator by yourself. You don't need me, and you've got these exercises to complete. They were able, through the use of simulator on their 6-week program, to finish it 1 week early. What that meant is they had an additional week to elevate the baseline of the class to a higher level and send the students out there with a higher level of confidence and a higher skill set. Next slide, please. Conowago, really a great construction company based out of Pennsylvania. I had the pleasure of going down there a couple times. They do they're a family-run business, 3rd generation now getting into it, and the 3rd generation are seeing these opportunities, the use of technology. So what they wanted to do is discover, even in a smaller group like them, not a huge organization, but a smaller, can they benefit from simulation? And what they found was very analytical. Through the use of simulation, they were able to reduce the training time for their cranes from 6 months to 7 weeks. The availability of the equipment was there for them, and the cost was reduced by over 60% because their equipment was in field making money. The simulator is back in the training sector, training people, division of labor as proper as it should be. On the earth moving side, they were able to use it to benchmark. They take in their best operators and they create benchmark scoring. Everyone else is measured about how are you on the path to being an experienced operator. And they're using it to evaluate people and to leave people who perhaps need a little bit more muscle memory or skills, leave them alone for a weekend, and they're coming back with a great reduction in cycle times and being a more productive and efficient person on the operator site. So really embedding the idea of continuous improvement into their organization. Next slide, please. So as a summary of those cases, much faster training, an easy return on investment. If you look at it through the traditional way of doing it, looking at your maintenance costs, looking at your insurance costs, your fuel costs, your instructor costs, and what revenue you can bring in more students. This thing returns its investments very quickly, and we encourage people, and we have booklets available for people who want to find out how their return on investment calculation applies to your business. Productivity improvements for people, as in the case of Conowago, a great reduction in equipment usage, and the training costs go way down. And the experience, the concentrated seat time that the students get go way up. Next slide, please. So that's how we've impacted the industry. And I just want to kind of quickly talk about who we are as a company. If you can go to the next slide, please. We've been around for quite a while now, and what we try to do is to simulate things in the world to make operations more efficient by really connecting people into making the processes more simple and equipment design more fluid. Can you go to the next slide, please? So with over 100 employees, 20 years experience, based out of Montreal, everything is built in-house. All the hardware is designed and built by us. All the software is designed and built by us. Everything that you see inside there, we do. So we have a very strong control over it because we're very passionate about what we're doing. Can you go to the next slide, please? What we really do is we are focusing a lot on three main industries: construction, port, and forestry. And when I say focusing on it, we start with designing equipment that has value, and designing equipment that is complex and that people need to have experience on. So in the case of forestry, you have these forwarders and harvesters. They're very complex pieces of equipment, hard to get seat time on. We will simulate that. Then we partner with training schools to develop curriculum that makes sense to people. And then we offer that solution out to the market. That's how we've approached everything with ports and cranes and earth moving. We find OEM partners like John Deere who work with us and design the equipment with us. We will say to the John Deere professional operators, we will not release this piece of equipment until your professional operators say that it feels exactly like the real equipment. When you give me that validation, I can design curriculum to have real value to students. So we really try to partner with people in each one of our verticals. Next slide, please. So we've been at this for a while. We've got installations and port and construction all over the world now. And we continue to grow because we like talking to people and we like finding solutions to problems. Next slide, please. So really at the foundation, and this is a small plug and where I get kind of passionate about, is the way that we approach things is the fundamental essence of who we are. We like to say that the time on the simulator is transferable to the equipment, and we are being validated by our hopes, by our partners saying that that is the case. Taking these things to trade shows and changing people's minds about what simulators can do when you take value in small things like torque tables and hydraulics, and the sum of the parts makes a greater whole than any of those things could have done. Wrapping those up in beautiful graphics and intelligent learning curriculum creates the simulators that you see. And now we have over 25 simulated modules and growing, but really finding partners is the key to what we do. Helping people is what we do and what motivates us. So the way we do that, what we can do with our expertise is to make sure that people have the highest possible degree of operator skills transfer anywhere in the industry by making sure that what you learn is a healthy respect for the equipment, and your muscles will understand where they are when they sit on that equipment for the very, very first time. Next slide, please. That was in essence what I wanted to say to you. I can talk for hours about this if you'd like, but if this is something that interests you, please reach out. If you have any questions, type into the chat, or you can follow up with us later on, and we can help find a solution for you guys. But I thank you for your guys' attention. We can move to the next slide and take some questions if you'd like.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you for the presentation. Just wanted to advise everybody on the call, if you have questions, please send it to the Q&A coordinator via the chat box. And we'll get started with some of the questions that we already received. The first one, it's for you, of course, Drew. Is it possible to customize a simulator for different equipment or scenarios?
Oh, 100%, 100%. So what we'll offer is a product version of it that is an amalgamation of all the discussions that we've had up until this point. But people often come with very unique pieces of equipment and very unique training scenarios. A good example is in the city of New York, the union there. They had a need to train on a very complex crane as a result of an accident. They wanted to mitigate that accident to not have it happen again. So they came to us, we designed it completely custom, completely to their needs, and designed a training curriculum around their specific needs. We can do anything that that people would request of us.
Thank you, Drew. The next question is, do simulators reduce accident levels?
It does allude to, we don't have numbers, and I don't want to say that they do. What we have is the stories that we get back from our partners who say that they do, who say that there is students going in with a much healthier respect for the equipment, a humbling of reducing the fear. We see time and time again, and one example from a client that we had was someone who was going into doing the certification and they failed it, and they were too nervous. So what they did is they put them on the simulator and they left them alone for 8 hours doing exercises, but guiding what they're doing, but leaving them alone for 8 hours. Their anxiety came down, their muscle memory went up, because it's always the debate between your mind and your muscles. And it's your muscles that need to calm down. Your mind needs to calm down. So what they found was people were getting back into the equipment much calmer, much more confident, with much more respect, which then in turn reduces rash behavior. So we are finding that's the case, but I don't have any hard data on it, just anecdotal from our partners.
Thank you. The next question is, will simulators replace trainers?
No, hard no. I come from training. Before I was doing this, I was a trainer. Absolutely not. The experience is the feedback loop in life. The older generation training the younger generation, that has to continue. What simulators do is provide a tool for the instructors to better express ideas, better reinforce ideas. It is a bad idea to be thinking that this is going to replace real world experience or the trainer's expertise. These are the people who have gone there and lived that, and unless we feed that back into the younger generation, we're going to lose something. So absolutely not. This is simply a training tool for the instructors to work with.
Great, thank you for the answer. There's another question. What percentage of training time can you use by using a simulator?
It's a little bit up to you. It depends on what your values are. A good example for me is a CITB. So these are the regulatory agency in the UK. We sold a lot of simulators to them. We did the investment with them and we worked with them. So what they started off with their 6 simulators, just using it on days that they couldn't go outside and train. They had a huge campus with lots of cranes that they were just a training institute. They don't have those worries, a publicly funded training institute. So they had the equipment out there available, so they valued going on the equipment. Then we started to work with them and to show them the value of simulation. And even though they had the equipment in the yard, when we developed the curriculum with them and to show how it can reinforce smaller ideas, they end up using the simulator 50% of the time. So 50% of the seat time that the students get are on simulators because they can accelerate the learning. So they chose to go that far. And even though they had the equipment available and all the public funding available to scale it, they found the value of the simulators was the best way to express and to reinforce ideas. So it really depends on your curriculum and on your values, but you can get up to 50% easily. And just to jump on a different one, there's a community center in Virginia who do 100% of the training on simulators because they don't have any equipment, but they were asked to by the government to address a labor shortage. 100% of the stuff they're doing is on our simulators, and then they get into field, and then they have a level of confidence and understanding of the equipment once they get onto it.
Great. Yeah, thank you. The next question, I think you kind of answered a little bit during your presentation, but it's a good question. How do you validate your simulators? You mentioned you're working with some of the OEM manufacturers, some of the equipment. Is there anything else that you do?
So with each one of, we have different components of it. So on the graphical side of it, when we're working with an OEM like Manitowoc, like John Deere, like Tiger Cat, we make sure that their product looks correct. But on our product version of it, we work with operators. We get them in as much as possible. On the behavior side of it, if we can get a professional operator whose life is to be testing prototype versions of that thing, and they can tell us, and we've structured it so that our developers can listen to things when they say the hydraulics is too squishy, to translate that into behavioral outputs. We work with them and we give them full legal sign-off that we won't release onto it. So we try to find industry partners when we can. Then we take it to training schools and validate the pedagogy, the learning path. Does this mirror your curriculum? We break everything down into objective assessment bits. And then what is the point on the basic controls exercise? What are you trying to do? Working with trainers. So we validate the pedagogical aspect of it with trainers. So we break it down into little bits and have different experts comment on that and then bring it all together. And then it goes into the field and then we receive feedback and we are continuously improving it based on customer feedback. So it's almost constant, but we try to get as much expertise as possible.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Another question more on the technical side. Do you do HoloLens VR simulators or simulations, VR or mixed reality, I would say, simulations?
Yes, we do VR simulators when appropriate. So the way that I view it as someone who kind of gatekeeps a little bit of that, VR is a brilliant, brilliant tool for situational awareness. When you need to have an awareness of what's going around you, then that's a really, really great tool. So we have used it in things like overhead crane demos, concrete pumps. So the American Concrete Pumping Association came to us with a problem. VR is a perfect solution for that. You're sitting around and you need to have complete environmental awareness. We back off it a little bit when it comes to operator training in a cab because your field of view is straight in for you. So we cover that with screens because we want to make sure that the instructor can get in there and point and put your hand on your shoulder and let me show you. We value human interaction. We don't want to isolate people unnecessarily so. So we absolutely do VR when appropriate. We often will have a couple scenarios that we'll do in VR and some of the other ones that we'll do on flat screens. So we'll work with that. And as far as mixed reality goes, the thing that I mentioned half of the presentation about augmented reality walk-around inspection is quite something I'm quite passionate about now. So that'll be launching this week or maybe early next week, leveraging that and using its portability. So technology for the sake of technology is no good for me. Technology, because it's a perfect fit for a solution to a problem, like being able to fit an entire excavator onto your phone and being able to practice walking around inspections on your phone anywhere, in your room, on the street, that is technology for the benefit of humanity. VR for the sake of a wow factor doesn't interest me. VR for the sake of environmental awareness and how it impacts what you're doing very much interests me. So yes, we are always integrating different technologies, but when appropriate.
Great, great. And one last question that we received is, if you would have to choose who to talk to in one of the companies that you wanted to sell your product to, who would be the best contact that you would want to present your solution to?
So if someone had an inquiry from us and wanted to chat with,
who would be your target person in an organization when you want to present your solution? Yes.
Oh yeah. I like training directors a lot, and I like instructors a lot. The instructor are the people whose problems we're solving, and the training director is the person who has the vision. So those are the ones that really interest me. I like seeing the impact on students. I like going in and shadowing classes. It's the instructors' lives. If we don't have the buy-in from the instructors, what we do is an academic exercise. So I really like instructors and solution directors and training managers. These are my people. These are the ones I really like to improve their lives on.
Great.
On the industry side, it's more the people who are dealing with the hiring and the people who are dealing with the quality control. And on the OEM side, I like to enter into the marketing side because I think there's a very strong impact there. But then I like to quickly get into training centers into their regional programs.
Thank you so much. And with this, we'll conclude our Q&A session. Thank you again, Drew, for your presentation on CM Labs, and thank you to everyone who joined today's sessions. We will be sending you a follow-up email shortly. Thanks again. Have a nice day.
Thank you.